You're not showing the level of commitment we expect. Derek's voice came through my laptop speakers, cold and strictly professional. Valentina, the data is clear. Your performance numbers have stayed below target for the past quarter. I stared at the screen in shock. The Zoom meeting showed Derek's unreadable face next to three HR staff members I barely knew. Without thinking, my hand moved to my headscarf. Today it was bright purple, covering what little hair I had left after 6 months of chemotherapy. I've kept every single client, I said, forcing my voice not to shake even though my chest felt tight. Garrison Publishing renewed their contract just last week. Riverside Hotels increased their order by 30%. Derek let out a slow breath, the sound crackling through my speakers. Managing relationships alone isn't enough. We need employees who deliver measurable growth. The executive board has decided to end your employment effective immediately. My name is Valentina Souf. I am 42 years old. I am a marketing director for Pinnacle Hospitality Group, or at least, I was until this moment. For 15 years, I helped hotels and resorts across the country grow their brands and boost bookings. Even after my breast cancer diagnosis 6 months ago, I never stopped working. I scheduled my chemo sessions on Friday afternoons so I could recover over the weekend and be back at my desk on Monday. I understand, I said softly, even though I truly didn't. Is there anything else? That's when the HR representative, Jocelyn, stepped in with rehearsed calm. Your final paycheck will be sent next Friday, along with details about continuing your health insurance. Your company phone and laptop will be remotely disabled at the conclusion of this call. Please return all equipment within 5 business days. I nodded silently. My mind jumped to my 2 children who would be walking through the door from school soon. How would I explain this to them? How would my husband and I handle the medical bills without my insurance? Thank you for the opportunity, I said out of pure habit. Years of professionalism kicked in just as my emotions threatened to spill over. I wish you all the best. I clicked the Leave Meeting button. Immediately, a new notification appeared on my screen. An email from Anthony Werner, the CEO of one of our biggest hotel clients. Looking forward to our strategy session next week. Your guidance has been invaluable during our rebrand. They didn't know. None of my clients had been told I was being fired. As I closed my laptop, my phone buzzed. A message from Kayla, my coworker and closest friend at Pinnacle. Call me now. When I called her, her voice was filled with anger. They just announced your firing in the all-hands meeting. Derek told everyone you'd been underperforming for months. He said the company couldn't afford to carry dead weight during a growth phase. Val, it was awful. A cold wave spread through me. This wasn't just about losing my job anymore. They were destroying my reputation. And deep down, I sensed this was only the beginning. My story with Pinnacle Hospitality Group began 15 years ago. When I first joined Pinnacle as a marketing coordinator, I had just finished graduate school. Back then, the company was small, only 20 employees in total, focused on helping independent hotels compete with the big national chains. I grew as the company grew. Over time, I rose through the ranks until I was leading a team of 10 and overseeing our most valuable client accounts. Leonard, the former marketing director, became my mentor. Under his guidance, I flourished. When he retired 3 years ago, promoting me felt like the obvious choice. My department consistently delivered strong results, with client retention staying above 90% and year-over-year revenue growth regularly beating targets. Then everything shifted 6 months ago with 2 life-changing blows: my cancer diagnosis and the arrival of Derek Turner as our new Chief Operating Officer. The diagnosis came first: stage 2 breast cancer. I needed surgery immediately, followed by intense chemotherapy. Leonard, who was still on the board after retiring, was the first person I told. His reaction was instant and unwavering. Take all the time you need, he told me. Your job will be waiting. But I chose not to step away. Instead, I worked around my treatments. On difficult days, I joined meetings from the oncology center. I never missed a client call. I never missed a deadline. My team supported me in incredible ways, covering when exhaustion hit hardest. Still, I stayed fully in charge. 2 months into my treatment, Derek arrived at Pinnacle. The investors brought him in to tighten operations ahead of a possible acquisition. He was in his early 40s, with an MBA from an elite university. Almost immediately, he introduced new productivity systems and performance tracking tools. At first, I welcomed the changes. I believed the structure would highlight the strength of my department. The first real warning came during a leadership meeting when Derek challenged one of my staffing decisions. I had assigned a new client to Jamie, my most experienced team member. Jamie's numbers are below average, he said, pointing to a dashboard I had never seen before. Wouldn't Tasha be a better option? Her metrics are much stronger. I explained that performance numbers didn't reflect Jamie's people skills, which were exactly what this client needed. Derek nodded, but I noticed a flash of irritation in his eyes. After that, similar situations kept happening. Derek slowly began cutting me out of strategic conversations. In meetings, my input was brushed aside or interrupted. The performance metrics he pushed seemed carefully designed to downplay my team's achievements while magnifying our few weak areas. Even so, I trusted the process. I believed that 15 years of proven results couldn't be wiped away by a few months of altered data, especially considering my health situation. Still, I started documenting everything. Every project, every client interaction, every leadership decision. Part of it was habit. Part of it came from a quiet, unspoken fear that one day I might need proof of my value. I never imagined that day would arrive so quickly, or in such a cruel way. The morning after my termination, I woke early. My body was still locked into its work routine, despite everything that had happened. Beside me, my husband, David, slept deeply. We had stayed up late talking about finances and what we would do about health insurance. I slipped out of bed, made coffee, and opened my personal laptop. First, I needed to see how far the damage had spread. I logged into LinkedIn to update my profile. Waiting for me were 3 messages from clients who had somehow already heard about my firing. Their confusion was clear. None of them had been warned. There had been no transition plan. "Is everything okay? We were relying on your leadership for our summer campaign," wrote the marketing manager from Harborview Resorts. I carefully wrote back to each of them. Calm, professional, reassuring. I told them I would connect them with the right contacts at Pinnacle. But with every message I sent, the tight knot of anger in my stomach grew heavier. These relationships had taken years to build. Some had been maintained through hospital visits and treatment days, and Derek had cut them off without hesitation. As I continued scrolling through my inbox, I found an email from Leonard, sent at 1:23 a.m. "Just heard the news. Call me. We need to talk." When I called him an hour later, his normally steady voice was tense with controlled anger. "This is outrageous, Valentina. The board was never consulted about your termination. Derek presented it as a done deal during yesterday's executive briefing." "Can they do that?" I asked quietly. "Fire a director without board approval?" "Technically, yes. Derek has hiring and firing authority. But it's an awful decision. And the way he handled it makes it even worse." Leonard paused. "He's presenting your medical situation as poor attendance," Leonard said carefully. "Medical leave?" I shot back in disbelief. "I never took medical leave. I worked through every single treatment." "I know," Leonard replied. "But Derek is telling a very different version. According to him, your performance has suffered for months because you've been distracted by personal matters." The unfairness of it took the air from my lungs. I had recorded everything, every project, every call, every result, precisely to protect myself from lies like this. Even on my worst days, when chemotherapy left me weak, sick, and barely able to stand, I still met every responsibility. There's more, Leonard continued. The marketing department is being restructured. Derek is bringing in someone from his former company to take your role. Based on the timeline, this was planned weeks ago. The truth hit me like physical pain. I hadn't been fired because of my performance. That was just the excuse. Derek had wanted me gone from the start. He had likely been building a case against me while I was fighting for my life. What can I do? I asked quietly, hating the weakness in my voice. For now, focus on your health and your family, Leonard said. But document everything, your achievements, the timing of your termination next to your treatments, and any communication that contradicts Derek's claims. After the call ended, I sat frozen at my kitchen table as morning sunlight slowly spread across the floor. I had given Pinnacle 15 years of my life. I had worked through cancer without complaint, and in return, I had been thrown away with a lie. For the first time since my diagnosis, I let myself cry. Not from sadness, but from clear, burning anger. By the following week, the reality of my situation had taken solid shape. My final paycheck arrived, along with the COBRA paperwork showing the crushing cost of keeping my health insurance, nearly $2,000 each month for my family. My next oncology appointment was in 2 weeks, with another round of maintenance therapy already scheduled. I couldn't afford to lose coverage. We'll find a way, David told me. But the deep lines around his eyes told a different story. As a high school art teacher, his income alone couldn't support our household and cover my medical care. I began applying for jobs immediately, reaching out to every industry contact I had. Interviews followed quickly. My reputation in hospitality marketing was still strong, despite Derek's efforts to damage it. But each interview ended the same way. As soon as I disclosed my medical condition, the momentum stopped. No one openly mentioned my cancer as the issue. Still, follow-up calls simply never came. At the same time, my former clients kept contacting me, confused about why they had been reassigned without warning. I stayed professional. I never spoke badly about Pinnacle, but the pattern was obvious. The relationships I had spent years building were being damaged by Derek's sudden and careless transition. One evening, after an exhausting day of interviews, my phone rang. It was Jasmine Davis, my former assistant at Pinnacle. "Val, I shouldn't be telling you this," she whispered, clearly afraid of being overheard. "But they're dismantling everything you built." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Derek's new director is removing all customized client strategies. They're forcing a standard service model on everyone, no matter what the client actually needs." "That won't work," I said instantly. "Boutique properties need totally different strategies than resort chains. Everyone on that team knows that." "They do," Jasmine said, "but Derek claims this is more efficient." I could practically hear the quotation marks in her voice. "And clients are already pushing back," she added. "Garrison is threatening to leave." Garrison Publishing was Pinnacle's oldest client. They represented nearly 15% of the company's revenue. Their boutique, literature-themed hotels depended on highly specialized marketing, systems I had personally created. "Has anyone shown Derek the retention rates? The client satisfaction scores?" I asked. "He doesn't care about those numbers," Jasmine said. "He only looks at cost per acquisition and marketing spend ratios." She hesitated. "There's something else. HR has been asking questions about your treatment schedule, about whether you worked during medical appointments. They're trying to build some kind of case after the fact." Cold anger settled deep in my chest. They weren't just replacing me. They were trying to rewrite the past to make it look like I had abused company time. The very next day, I received a certified letter from Pinnacle's legal department. It stated that I had violated company policy by handling personal matters during work hours, specifically attending medical appointments while still logged in as working. They demanded repayment of wages for those hours and threatened legal action if I didn't comply. It was shockingly cruel and perfectly timed when I was at my most financially vulnerable. I called Leonard right away. They're trying to make me repay wages for the hours I worked during chemotherapy. Can they really do this? His reply was calm but steady. They're bluffing. This is intimidation. Don't respond yet. I'm meeting with several board members tomorrow who were not fully informed about the real circumstances of your termination. This still might change things. For a brief moment, I felt a spark of hope. But years in corporate life had already trained me not to rely on fairness. So instead, I focused on what I could control. That evening, I carefully organized my entire file of records: performance evaluations, client testimonials, completed project results, and detailed work logs from my treatment period. I had always kept thorough records out of professional habit, never expecting I would one day need them to protect myself. As I sorted through the evidence, a different kind of plan started forming in my mind, one that would not depend on Leonard's position or the board's integrity. The hope Leonard had given me didn't last long. 2 days later, he called again. Disappointment was heavy in his voice. The board is standing behind Derek's decision, he said. They're focused on the possible acquisition and don't want internal disruption. I'm so sorry, Valentina. Did they even acknowledge that I worked through cancer treatment? That I never took medical leave? I asked, struggling to hold back the bitterness. They recognized your dedication, Leonard said, but in the end, they chose to rely on Derek's judgment of your performance. He exhaled quietly. There's something else you should know. I resigned from the board in protest. That left me stunned. Leonard had helped establish Pinnacle. He stayed on the board after retirement out of loyalty to the company he helped build. You didn't have to do that, I said softly. Yes, I did, he replied. This isn't the company I created anymore. Then he continued, his tone more serious. Valentina, there's something bigger happening. I've been looking into Derek's history at his previous company, Meridian Hotels. He followed the same pattern there, pushing out experienced directors just before their major stock options vested, then replacing them with people willing to work for less. That's exactly what happened to me, I realized aloud. My shares would have vested next month. There's more, Leonard added. The company planning to acquire Pinnacle, Axion Hospitality Group, Derek has ties there as well. He previously worked with their CEO at Meridian. Everything suddenly fell into place with sickening clarity. He's positioning himself for power in the merged company, I said. He's cutting costs, installing loyal employees, and inflating short-term numbers, even if it damages long-term client relationships and stability. It's a pattern, Leonard said grimly. After the call ended, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by printed proof of everything I had contributed to Pinnacle: performance reports, client testimonials, successful campaigns. None of it seemed to matter against corporate strategy and greed. Later that night, while David and the children slept, I received an unexpected email from Kayla. She had forwarded a message Derek sent to the marketing team. As we roll out the standardized service model, the email said, expect pushback from legacy clients. This is normal and should not raise concern. Clients unwilling to adjust to our more efficient system may not be the right fit for Pinnacle's future. Consider this an opportunity to identify which relationships truly generate value and which continue only from habit. Attached was a spreadsheet, 2 columns: retain and expendable. Garrison Publishing, despite its major revenue contribution, had been placed under expendable, most likely because their custom needs didn't fit Derek's standardized system. A surge of protectiveness rushed through me. These weren't just accounts. These were clients I had worked with for years. Their businesses depended on strong marketing in a competitive industry. Derek was willing to discard them for short-term performance numbers that would make the company look attractive to buyers. Then I noticed something else in the forwarded email chain. A message sent directly to Pinnacle's investors. It outlined something labeled Strategic Workforce Optimization. My termination. In that message, Derek openly misrepresented my performance and contributions. He claimed the marketing department had been underperforming for years, even though the documented data showed the exact opposite under my leadership. The investors controlling Pinnacle's future were making decisions based on lies. At that moment, something inside me changed. This was no longer only about my unfair dismissal. This was about the intentional dismantling of a company I had helped build, the careless disregard for loyal clients, and the manipulation of people who deserved the truth. I opened my laptop and created a new document. I titled it simply, The Complete Record. It was time for real transparency. By dawn, I had assembled a full dossier that told the true story of Pinnacle's marketing department, including performance data, client retention figures, revenue growth numbers, and direct testimonials. I placed a detailed timeline of my cancer treatments next to documented proof of the work completed during that exact period. I presented only the facts, no emotion, no commentary. The evidence spoke for itself. The only question left was this: what should I do with it? I considered my choices carefully. A wrongful termination lawsuit might eventually bring results, but legal battles are slow, costly, and draining. And right now, those were luxuries I could not afford. I couldn't afford a legal battle while I was still managing cancer treatment. Going to the press felt risky too. It could make me look spiteful and might hurt employees who had nothing to do with what was happening. What I needed was a direct connection to the people who actually had power to change things: Pinnacle's investors. Over the years, I had crossed paths with representatives from the three major investment firms that supported Pinnacle. I still had their contact information, but using it meant crossing a line that could never be undone. As I wrestled with the decision, another message came in from Jasmine. It's getting worse. Derek just fired Jamie for insubordination after she questioned the new approach with Garrison. They're talking about leaving. 3 other clients might follow. Jamie had been with Pinnacle for 12 years. She had 2 children in college. In that moment, my decision became clear. I would send my documentation to the investors, not out of revenge, but because they deserved the truth. They had the right to know the real condition of the company they had invested in. I wrote a calm, factual cover letter. I explained why I felt obligated to share the information. I emphasized my concern for Pinnacle's long-term stability, not my personal hurt. Then I attached the full document and scheduled the email to send the next morning. Once that was done, I went to bed. For the first time since my termination, I slept deeply. I woke to the sound of my phone ringing. The number was unfamiliar. It was William Garrison himself, the CEO of Garrison Publishing. Valentina, I just heard about Jamie. What in the world is happening over at Pinnacle? I answered carefully, speaking only about the organizational changes and avoiding personal attacks. This new standardized strategy won't work for us, he said bluntly. Our hotels are built on unique literary identities. Generic marketing would destroy everything we've built together. I understand your concern, I replied gently. Then he surprised me. I want to offer you a position, Director of Marketing for Garrison Publishing, working directly with our hotel division. We've respected your work for years, no matter what that new COO is claiming. The offer caught me completely off guard. It arrived at the exact moment I desperately needed stability, but there was something I had to say. William, I need to be transparent. I'm undergoing cancer treatment. It hasn't affected my work, but my sister is a 5-year breast cancer survivor, he interrupted. We offer excellent health coverage and flexible working arrangements. Your health is a priority here, not a liability. Tears filled my eyes at the simple kindness in his words. After we finalized the terms, including an immediate start date, I opened my laptop to cancel the scheduled email to Pinnacle's investors. My finger hovered over the button. Now that I had a new job, did I still need to send it? As I hesitated, another email arrived from Kayla. Derek just announced a company-wide pay cut to boost the acquisition profile. At the same time, he's getting a retention bonus. People are panicking. I closed the cancellation window. The investors still needed the truth. Not for my sake anymore, but for everyone at Pinnacle who had no voice. The email would go out as planned. Whatever happened next would simply be the natural result of truth finally entering the conversation. At precisely 9 a.m., my email and its full set of attachments landed in the inboxes of Pinnacle's 3 major investors. I included everything. Performance data proving the marketing department had consistently exceeded targets under my leadership. Client testimonials specifically praising my work during my illness. Medical records confirming I had worked through treatment. And the recent internal communications revealing Derek's misrepresentations and his calculated dismantling of client relationships. The reaction was immediate and explosive. By 10:30 a.m., Leonard called me. "The investors are in an emergency meeting with the board," he said. "Your email has caused quite..." The fallout hit fast. At noon, my phone vibrated with a message from Kayla. "They just pulled Derek into a surprise video call with the investors. He looks like he's about to be sick." By 3 p.m., William Garrison, now officially my employer, forwarded me an email he had received from Pinnacle's lead investor. They were requesting an urgent discussion about Garrison Publishing's relationship with the company. Similar messages had reportedly gone out to every major client. "They're scrambling for damage control," William wrote. "Too late, in my opinion." At 5:15 p.m., another message came through, this one formal. It was from Eleanor Winters, the managing partner of Pinnacle's largest investment firm. "Ms. Souf, thank you for bringing these matters to our attention. We take the concerns you raised very seriously and have initiated an immediate internal review. I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly. Please contact my assistant to arrange a time." I scheduled the call for the following morning. Then I shifted my focus to preparing for my new role at Garrison. Whatever happened at Pinnacle now would unfold without my involvement. The truth was finally in the right hands. That evening, as my family celebrated my new job over dinner, my phone buzzed again. It was a company-wide Pinnacle email forwarded by several former coworkers. "Effective immediately, Derek Turner is no longer with Pinnacle Hospitality Group. Further organizational updates will follow. Please direct any client concerns to your department director." The message was brief, corporate, and absolutely devastating in its implications. It turned out truth still had power after all. 3 months later, I sat in my new office at Garrison Publishing, reviewing the marketing strategy for their upcoming literary-themed resort in Santa Fe. My health had improved significantly. The maintenance therapy was working, and my oncologist was optimistic about my prognosis. The Pinnacle story continued without me, though I learned what happened through different sources. The investors installed an interim leadership team and immediately paused the acquisition talks with Axion. An internal investigation revealed that Derek's optimization strategy had been carefully designed to inflate short-term performance metrics while damaging long-term client relationships, all to make the company look more appealing for acquisition. Several of the employees who had been fired, including Jamie, were reinstated with full back pay. The standardized marketing system was abandoned. The customized client strategies I had built were restored. Slowly, the company began rebuilding the trust that had been torn apart during Derek's brief but destructive time in charge. As for Derek, I later heard that he had left the state. His reputation in the hospitality industry had been permanently destroyed. The fact that I was proven right should have felt more satisfying. Instead, what I felt most was relief that the damage was being repaired. Eleanor Winters later reached out with a formal apology. She even suggested that I return to Pinnacle in an executive role. I declined politely. I had found something better. At Garrison, my work was valued, and so was my humanity. My phone buzzed with a message from David. "Don't forget dinner with the kids at 6:30. We're celebrating your last treatment. I smiled as I gathered my things to head home early. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: a major campaign launch, possible expansion of Garrison's literary hotel concept into international markets, and a full life beyond cancer and corporate warfare. The past couldn't be changed, but it had brought me here, to a place where my health mattered, where my work was respected, and where the future held promise instead of fear. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about finally getting free.